Welcome to this tutorial series where we'll create a complete CRM system in Expert Flux. In this first video, we'll create a simple customer list along with an integrated search engine. You will learn how to create a database table, frames for client information input, and also a search frame. At the end of the video, we'll generate the created software and see what it looks like. Thus is Expert Flux initial screen, and we are gonna create a new project inside it. You can choose any name you want for your project. Here we'll name it Client. Press Ctrl F1 to show new table creation screen. The idea here is to create the basic blocks that will hold information. In Expert Flux, those blocks are called UIs, which stands for Unity of Information. For instance, we have here the name of the client, its gender, and birth date. You will notice that each field has a different data type. A point of interest is the client code, which we call CD client. It is an integer number that usually it's not seen by users. It's used only internally to assign a different number to each client. When you click OK, you have created the table in the database. Here we have a new concept, niche. A niche is a collection of tables. At this point, we have only one table, but you will see in the next tutorials where this will be very useful to us when adding new information to our client database. The next step is to add the table to the niche. Do that by dragging the table from the list at the right to the green area here. The list on the right is called Workspace, and it's a mirror of what exists in the library. To change from the current object view to the library, press F2. To change back, you press F2 again. Next, we will set up the database. This version of Expert Flux uses Microsoft SQL Server. We will now fill the data pertinent to the database you want to create. Expert Flux will generate all necessary steps to create a database and a tables. You have just to provide the password for a database. The person that installed your SQL server will know which user you want to use. Usually this user is SA. You fill the name of the database here. Expert Flux will create the database with this name. Now we will come back to the library view by pressing F2, and we'll start to create a room. This is the way you program inside Expert Flux. You create rooms, and just like a real room, it has doors. In Expert Flux, we enter a room by an indoor and leave by outdoors. So you go into a room, entering through an indoor, do something inside the room, and exit by one outdoor. A room can have several types. In future tutorials, we will discuss that, but for now, we will create a process room. A process room is the first room that appears on the user's first menu. Processes also have actors, which will represent different kinds of users. Inside the process client room, we will create a form. Drag the form icon from the above items inside this business object lane. Let's name this form Consult Client. If you drag this form outside the lane, you will see the indoors and outdoors that it has. And by double-clicking on the form, a new tab called Form Consult Client will be shown. Let's rename this outdoor, which is called End, to Exit. You can rename anything here, usually by clicking on it. We are creating the search form. We will have an edit field to import the name of the client we are searching for. And we will have several buttons to create new clients and another button to modify clients already in the database. You create an edit field by dragging the existing UI into the library and then to the frame. To create a button, you just drag the button from the icons above to the frame. Frames are areas inside your form that contains components. In the future, we will have a tutorial about frames. Every time you drag a new thing from the bar above, you will be asked for its name. We will create several buttons to update our client database, to consult new clients, to create a new client, to erase an existing client, and to search for clients. The last button we need to create is the exit button. After all buttons are done, it's time to create the grid to display the search results. You can think of a grid as a table in your form. It is a convenient way to show data to users. We will now select the UD that will define the columns for this grid. This UD was created automatically when we created the table using Ctrl F1. Remember, a UD is just a collection of UIs. Every grid has a key field name. This is a column in the grid that will uniquely identify each line in the grid. Since the client code is unique, we will use it to guarantee that each line has an exclusive identifier. If you press F11, you will see the form view. We will organize and distribute the fields in the form. You may see here that the grid has no columns in it. That's because no column has been marked as visible. Press F11 to change to the form view. Double-clicking the grid component gets you to the grid view form. Please notice that above and to the left we have a line saying where we are in the hierarchy. In this case we have library, form consult client, and client grid. These are the columns that are present in the grid. To make a column appear in the grid, you just select it and turn on the visible checkbox at your left. We will now select the room that is controlling the process by clicking on the bar above you, where it is written #process client. You can see that the doors we created in the form appear here. We will now link these doors to what we want them to do when a user clicks on a button. The idea behind this is simple. Every operation on a form, like buttons, link to an outdoor, and any outdoor links to the programming components that will define what will happen when exiting using this outdoor. We will start with the exit door, which will simply exit the process. This means that when the user clicks on the exit button, it will close the form and return the user where he was before. Now we will return back to the form to link the buttons to each door. We will now create the code for searching a client using the name field that was on the form. This component, which is called Data Retriever, accesses the database to retrieve the clients. Please notice that we use the same UD that we used at the grid. The idea behind this is the data retriever fills the UD with data. And since this UD was the same we choose for the grid, it will display the data retrieved. By clicking in the Where property, we will be taken to the expression view. Here we fill the criteria used in the search. After the search is done, we close this window, returning to the hash process client screen. We will now program the new client button. We will use the clear niche component, which initializes niche data. Let's call it clear client. Now we need to create a new form where we will input the data for a new client. To connect clear client to the new form, drag an arrow to the start door. Double-click on Form Client to open its form view. This form will have two out doors, one to exit and cancel the process, and another to save the new clients. In your workspace, located in the right of your screen, select UDs and then DB client data. This UD represents all the input data on the client table. Please notice that we are not using the individual UIs. We do this for two reasons. One, because we need to fill the niche, and the second, because in the future this will greatly facilitate the maintenance of this software. We will create two buttons for this form: Save and Exit. You can also add images to the buttons you are creating by clicking on them and then on Images on the left menu. And now we link those buttons to the outdoors. You can arrange the layout by pressing F11. Just click and drag to make it look like you want. After we finish the layout, we link the exit outdoor to the search, and then we are going to return to the previous form. It is a good practice to always redo the search because we may have altered data in this form. We will now add a new component to save all clients' data to the database. Let's name it Save Client. On the left menu, select Niche Client. Remember, a niche is a collection of tables, just like an UD is a collection of UIs. We are now adding a simple business rule to check if a client has been selected in the grid and link it to the Update button. We are also going to use the total qualification property to check if there's anything selected in the grid. This message we typed here will appear if the total qualification fails. If the client has been selected, we will load it from the database into a niche using the load niche component. The where property of the load niche ensures that we load the client selected in the grid. Now we just have to link the load client component to the start of the form. In order to erase data, we will create a delete niche component To make things easy, let's copy and paste the client selected and load client components to reuse them later. We will simply load the client into a niche using the delete niche component. After that, we will continue to the same flux that we used to create a new client. We will now create a list for the gender field using the items property. And that's it. We have just created our process. Now we'll generate the source code for this website. And for that we will use a deploy component. We add the process to deploy by dragging it from the list in the workspace at your right menu. By double-clicking the Deploy All component, we get the source generate view. Just click on Build All and Expert Flux automatically calls Visual Studio to generate the website. We will now just test some functions. And it's working. So people, this is the end. Thanks a lot for watching, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to keep up with Expert Flux news. In the next lesson, we will continue to transform the simple client database website into a complete CRM. Stay tuned!